sticky.
Okay, so let's just quickly see if the groups come up with the same thing from the different cases. Did you all have a chance to look at the two cases? Because you were working on one, but were you aware of what was the other one was about? Okay, so case one, which are these two over here. Can someone who did case one just give a brief précis of what was happening in case one? It's this table and this table.
We did case two.
Sorry, it's this one. So Chris, you can...
Class online because they were busy students. Seemed to be the first time that he or she had done it. Set up 3 open discussion groups. A couple of people had contributed, but they all said they were pretty busy and it all died down a bit. And you were going to go and have coffee with them, and what were you going to suggest?
Right, okay, so that's, for those of you who do case two, that's the case one scenario.
Alright, sure, yeah, so we're in the degree. Basically we thought, well, first of all, we need to know where the problem is stemming from. Is it stemming from the students, the teaching, or the system itself? So the 2 underlined sections at the top is we need to reflect back. If this has just gone online, if it was maybe partially online last semester or last year, or if it was fully face-to-face, we need to look what was working when that was in a different teaching setting, and then also get the facts. We need to know how many people are actually, logging on maybe, but not discussing how many people are literally away. We know that a couple of people have written in to say that they're really busy. So when we broke down and looked at those 3 kind of areas that we should focus on, the students we talked about, well, maybe like Andrea mentioned this morning in her scenario, have some direct contact with some of the students, ask them for some feedback on what's working and what's not. Reach out to the non-respondents, so the people that we know haven't emailed us, they haven't posted anything online, maybe they haven't logged in. We really need to start connecting with them and then asking for that feedback again. And learning outcomes, you can see, is kind of covered on all those 3 areas, because we talked about this idea that maybe these learning outcomes isn't something that we've collectively talked about prior to the session starting or prior to the course starting. It's something that we need to be really clear on what the students expect, what the teaching staff is expecting to receive in return, and what we're expecting to get out of the system by taking it online. You can see from when we look at maybe the teacher's role, the nature of discussions and the topics. We know that they've put 3 open discussion topics up. Are they engaging topics to the students? Are they topics that we think are going to grasp their interests and get them, at 7 o'clock after they've put the kids to dinner, to hop online and really have a, interesting debate about? So maybe just to review those things and discuss these ideas with your peers who are maybe doing online teaching themselves in a similar scenario, to gauge from them what's been working for them, especially if this is your first time in an online environment.
I might stop you there because it's nice and copious, and just to give the other group a chance to cover what you put in for bigger ideas that you would come up with, how you would suggest to get around that problem.
You said the same thing. No, our first point is that it obviously needs to add some structure. And in terms of kind of practical tips for this person that they could do, the first one was maybe they should do kind of a getting to know you exercise, so the students feel a bit more comfortable engaging with each other online. The second tip was to provide opportunities to share their own experience, so kind of base the discussion around their own work environment with an issue and all of that, so they're confident about their contribution, that they're not going to be judged on it. Also, you might want to allow some anonymity. Oh no, you know, can't say I can't spell it. But so that the students can feel comfortable as well in terms of contributing. Another issue is that the facilitator really needs to set some short-term goals, and they should be linked to the assessment so that there is an opportunity for the students to see why the assessment would be linked back to their goals. And it's also a good opportunity for the teacher to see what the value of the assessment is themselves. Another issue is to really set some timelines and deadlines. I think we all know a little bit of pressure helps, so as a motivator. Finally, kind of create links to current issues and news so that it's a bit more topic savvy in terms of what's happening in the world. It's not just based on theory. And also kind of create clear guidelines and expectations of the students at the beginning so they know what they're getting into.
Okay, absolutely. Now, the second case, thank you for that, they're all strategies of exactly the sorts of things that I would do. In fact, I've got some examples of how I've done it to show you in a sec with my presentation. Now, there'll probably be some overlap with case 1 and case 2, but for those of you who did case 2, and if you didn't see case 1, can someone give a little summary of what case 2 was?
I'll give a summary, then I won't have to speak to the basically, somebody, you have been doing some online work in your course, and your groups have been evaluated quite well, and you felt that it'd be reasonably successful. The head of schools asked you to come and talk to the rest of the staff on the course to try and help them to improve theirs. They've run face-to-face workshops. The face-to-face components have worked well, and when they've had an online component to that, and that online component hasn't worked as well, it's evaluated poorly. So you're being brought along as the guru that seems to know how to do this magic thing, and the head of school is expecting you to advise your colleagues on how to move forward.
Great, so advice you're going to give is?
We had a number of points. The first one is go back to first principles and learning, and I guess somebody mentioned it before, learning outcomes, so go back to first principles, work on your course structure, and then look at the technology, make sure the technology is working, because there could have been problems. We don't know, we weren't given a lot of information, it could be that as well. So ask some basic questions. What do you do that is working in your workshop? So you're doing face-to-face workshops, but you also had the online. Obviously something was working face-to-face, okay. Can that be duplicated online? There's obviously some sort of difference, so that needs to be looked at. So can you create similar processes online? There may be a staff development issue, as a lot of us are aware. There is a push at the moment to have more people in the schools to support the online teaching, support staff for that, but we need to talk to management and make sure that there is actually staff development for online teaching, so that the teachers are skilled in this, because it is actually quite complex. There's a mixture of technology issues, and there's a mixture of how do you actually teach online? What is online teaching for a start, and how do you do it? How do you build the activities? How do you build the structure? And it's a complex thing. There was issues about the student and staff expectations, and we talked first about student expectations, and then we talked about the staff expectations. And it may be that the student expectations weren't met, so you need to go back, and as we said here, you've got to look at the CATI results or whatever sort of evaluation feedback you had, because obviously there's going to be some information in there. So go back and have a look at that, or maybe if you're still running the course or it's probably just finished, just go back and talk to your students. Go back and ask them what the problems were. Were those, and one issue about that is, were those expectations of what was expected of the students, for example, were they actually explicitly stated, were they communicated to the students? And the same with the staff, because we don't know, just because there is an online component, were the staff actually, was it made clear to the staff what they're actually expected to do online? With the activities, were they actually expected to design the activities and run them, or, there's a whole lot of issues there. And yeah, lastly, feedback to management. So there's a lot of ways of improving online education, and one of them, you have to go back and talk to management and make sure all the structures are in place, the technology's right, all those issues are all in place. Any other comments from anybody? That was what we did.
Thank you very
So we didn't name specific activities or anything. So we just looked at the other issues.
Now, I can't read the writing on this one, so you might have to
We've got a school of optometry down the hill.
Thank you, Barbara. Good recruitment.
Sure. I'll actually have to get physically closer to glasses with me. In addition to the great points made by this group, we would also like to throw up and say that we thought it would be important to make sure there's no duplication in activities undertaken by those groups from the face-to-face to the online component, because we want to avoid a situation of students saying, well, we've already done this. It needs to be different and fresh. We also felt it was important to make sure that there's careful integration and scaffolding in activities between the workshops, where they've come out all enthusiastic about what they've done, and they see the increasing complexity and connectivity between what they've done there and what they go on to do in the online component. We are very aware that we need to provide a very well-resourced and effective and easy to use online environment. so that the content that the students need is there and accessible, and that information is clearly conveyed to them in terms of what's the relative weighting or value of this particular material. And also, given that we can overwhelm our students with the amount of information, we need to be very sort of providing signposts or flags about what they need to do and where in the online component. If you do nothing else this week, just read these 2 articles, or go to this website, or download this documentary, whatever it is. And lastly, we felt that often students can ask us a penetrating question: why are we doing this? And often, if we can articulate a case, you'll do this in professional practice, either now or later after the course, and we can create online activities that relate to their work integrated or ongoing professional practice. They'll engage much more effectively with those activities or materials. Hopefully that covers what you said.
Thank you. That's great. Okay, interestingly, did you notice that in fact we had 4 groups and you came up with quite different things? In fact, like there wasn't a whole lot of overlap. Even between the 2 cases there wasn't either. And certainly everything you've talked about is exactly the sorts of things that I've been exploring online and using online in my courses. The other reason I did this was to show you, I'm sure many of you have done it, it's nothing new at all, but how something, a small case can actually generate really good ideas and focus quite quickly students' ideas around what you're really trying to get them, around the concepts and issues and so on. So I wanted to use it for 2 purposes: to show you how quick and easy it is to use a case, and secondly, to start you thinking about the ideas that I'm about to hopefully show you. In fact, you came up with most of them. So.